Now, Adam, there we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the agenda here and really give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about throughout the. Initially, what we want to do is we want to set the stage for this from a business standpoint and understand the value of a contact lens wearer. And there have been a number of researchers that have actually looked at this, but we're going to look at one study in particular. Then we're going to talk about fitting techniques and some of the pros and cons to monovision and then some of the benefits that multifocals can deliver to our patients. We're going to talk about developing a game plan specifically in your practice and understand the importance of proper patient selection and patient education in this whole process. We're going to talk about starting strategies, and then we're going to give you some practice management pearls just based on what Jason and I have seen work in our practices. And then we're going to go through a case study or a case presentation that's going to kind of show you some of the technology that's available. Now, there are certainly some misnomers that I've heard in the optometric community concerning multifocals. And one of them is there's not that much money or there's not that much dollars or there's not that much potential in multifocal contact lenses. Another unfortunate kind of misnomer that's out there in the optometric community is that they're difficult or they're not really going to make the patient happy or they take too much time to fit. And another one is that they just don't work. Multifocal contact lens technology isn't where it needs to be. These are three key points that hopefully by the end of the discussion, Jason and I will really get a chance to delve into and hopefully answer for everybody on the call this evening. So, when we're talking about contact lens wearers, and again, this is certainly a topic that Jason and I are both passionate about, it really is incumbent to start right here at the London Business School study, and this was published in 2006 in Contact Lens Spectrum. And Mark Ritson out of the UK looked at patients and was trying to determine which ones were more profitable, those patients that were solely eyeglass wearers or those patients who were contact lens wearers. And he determined this by measuring how much over a lifetime each would spend, how often they would be seen in the practice, and how long they would typically be seen in that practice. And he analyzed the revenues that would be seen there. And what he found was pretty interesting because in general, we think of the initial profit to the practice being greater for those people who are solely wearing eyeglasses, but we need to understand that patients who wear contact lenses are also spectacle wearers as well. Contact lens patients require more frequent eye exams than their spectacle-wearing counterparts. It's on average about 1.5 to 1.8 years that we see our contact lens wearers as compared to about 2.5 to 3 years for our solely spectacle-wearing patients. And again, we need to understand that there are other profit avenues for people wearing contact lenses, such as sunglasses. When they did the analysis and they looked at it, they found that a contact lens wearer over a lifetime was 60% more profitable to an optometric practice. Now, this shouldn't be the reason why we embrace contact lenses. The reason why we embrace contact lenses as practitioners is because we want to deliver that visual experience. We want to make our patients more functional. But this is one of those inherent benefits that we see in our contact lens wearing population. Personally, I can tell you that contact lens wearers are certainly gratifying to fit in the practice, in particular those patients that you're giving something that they don't expect, those multifocal patients. And I'm seeing these benefits in our practice. Jason, when you look at this data and you look at this study, are you kind of mirroring what I'm saying? Or, give me your thoughts on this.
Thank you for that. Yeah, definitely. We, in my practice, I found that, especially last year, with there being kind of a down year in the whole, a lot of businesses throughout the country, my practice continued to grow because we focus a lot on contact lenses. Those contact lens patients are going to come in. They're going to be some of the most loyal patients. They want to continue to wear lenses. They want to have freedom from their spectacles. And so, I think if you focus your practice on contact lenses, the spectacle side is going to be an avenue. But I think it's amazing the loyalty that your contact lens patients are going to have to you. So, I need to advance this. Sorry, Adam. Let me see here. I'm missing my little button. There it is.
There you go.
There we go. I didn't see it good. Definitely, and again, I think if you look at the market, I think the contact lens market, there's been a lot of research. There's all kinds of new, there are all kinds of new lenses, not just multifocals, but the daily lenses, toric lenses. So a lot of patients that maybe have had an unsuccessful experience in the past, I let them know, there's new options, and there's new lenses, there's new solutions, and there's better ways to make you happy and comfortable in contact lens wear. If we just look at the size of the presbyopic market, and I think every manufacturer is talking about the size of this market because they want ODs to understand that this is a huge opportunity for us. We got to realize that those patients turning in their 40s in that presbyopic age is incredibly growing at an incredibly fast rate. There are 74 million baby boomers born between 1946 and 1964, and those patients are now presbyopic. Some of them more advanced presbyopes, and there's 20 million Americans who are going to turn 40 in the next 5 years. And I think it's important that you look at this as a huge opportunity. These patients, many of them aren't even aware that multifocal contact lenses are an option for them. So we need to make sure, as from our business side, from our practices, that we're ready to go and we're ready to treat those patients and, again, keep them free from their spectacle wears. Here we go. And this is the normal course as patients turn in that presbyopic population, is that a lot of them will drop out of contact lenses. There's a huge drop-off at the age of 45 of contact lens wearers, and a huge increase in vision corrective devices, progressive lenses, eyeglasses. A lot of them say, you know what, it's too much hassle. I can't see as well. But I think if you focus your practice on making those patients happy, again, you're going to turn them into loyal patients. A lot of times they'll be the best referral to your practice. So make sure you're ready to go for this population that's coming. So here are some more facts. There's 3.2 million contact lens wearers annually, new wearers, and 2.8 million of them drop out. A lot of them drop out because of discomfort. And that's one of the first things I tell patients whenever I'm doing a contact lens fitting is I tell them, you know what, I want you to see clear. I'm going to get you to see clearly, but comfort is king. I want them to let me know how comfortable are these lenses, because I realize 40 to 45% of those patients are going to drop out. So if they're not comfortable in their lenses. So I want to make sure that I focus on that. I let them know that right off the bat. And when they come back to that follow-up visit, that's the first question I ask them is how comfortable the lenses are before I even look at their visual acuity, before I even look at the fit of their lenses. If they're not comfortable, I'm ready to refit them. But again, the second biggest reason is because of presbyopia. And again, we want to prevent these dropouts, and we want to keep these patients happy in contact lenses for a long period of time. 40 is the new 30. I love that thing because it's coming up to me very closely. 40 is the new 30. This is, again, the fastest growing segment in the contact lens industry. And these baby boomers do not easily accept the aging process of the eye. There's certainly a high demand for cosmetic teeth whitening, for liposuction, anti-wrinkle treatments. These patients do not take aging easily. In contact lenses, there's a lot of perception that you look younger when you're wearing contact lenses. You don't have the glasses on your face. Again, the perception is that if I can continue to maintain my youth and maintain my appearance, and people are more active these days. They're more involved in keeping healthy, and the majority of these patients are just unaware that even presbyopic contact lenses are even an option. And 83% of them are actually not aware of even what presbyopia is. And a lot of them, I'm surprised at the number of patients that are 42, 43 that are sitting in my chair don't understand what's going on with their eyes. And I don't know about you guys, or you, Mila, but I have a little eye imagination video in my practice, and any type of education video. And to be honest with you, I'd almost rather not talk about presbyopia. I'd like to play the little video. It's a little 45-second little loop. It tells them what presbyopia is. And to be honest with you, while they're doing that, if I am going to fit them in contact lenses, or if I need to look over their visual fields, whatever I need to do to fill out anything on their chart, it's nice to play that little video again so you're not having to explain presbyopia 20 times during the day.
Yeah, you're exactly right with that, Jay. Any type of educational material that you have for patients, whether it be you personally face-to-face explaining things or some type of educational module on computer screen or even a handout or a brochure is all powerful information for that patient.
Yeah, during the course of the day, I'm not sure if my colleagues out here on the call tonight are doing the same thing, but I usually try to reserve about 4 or 5 minutes at the end of my exam to talk about, what I found during the exam, and talk about what my recommendations are, because sometimes we just get into so much of a hurry that we're into the data collecting. Well, I like to talk about what I found, and I like to let them know what my recommendations are, and take that little bit of time just to make sure we explain everything and answer any questions. And to be honest with you, from the practice management side of that goes a long way, and patients really feel like their doctor cares about what's going on with their eyes.
And arguably, Jay, from a relationship building standpoint, that may be the most important component of that patient-doctor interaction, is that last 4 to 5 minutes where you're explaining and talking to that patient about exactly what happened during the eye exam and your recommendations to maximize their visual health.
Completely agree with that. And again, just to kind of reiterate the process, or reiterate our saying, 40 is the new 30. Once patients were talked about, again, 83% of those patients don't even realize presbyopia is an option. Even more don't even understand there's multifocal contact lenses. But once they were discussed, I think it's just a matter of us. I know it's just a matter of us discussing it with our patients, and a lot of them would love to continue to have that freedom. 75% of contact lens wearers and 60% of spectacle wearers were interested in trying contact lenses. So it starts right there in our exam chair. And a motivated contact lens wearer, those patients, again, they want to stay young. They're one of the best opportunities that we have in our practices these days. And would you agree with that, Mila, as far as from the business side?
Yeah, absolutely, Jay. I feel like, we're obviously both passionate about this topic, Jay, because we've both seen the successes from a patient-centered standpoint and from a practice-building standpoint with really targeting this multifocal population. These are typically the people in the family that are making much of the decisions for the family, i.e. a 45-year-old female comes in for the first time to your office thinking she needs glasses, thinking she needs reading glasses, not even knowing that contact lens or multifocal contact lenses exist. By offering her contact lenses, even, Jay, if she doesn't decide to get contact lenses that day, you've already set a precedent for that patient. You've already created a perception to that patient that you practice at a high level and you offer the best technologies to your patients. And what you've done is planted a seed so that now she knows all her options.
I call that setting the stage. I want to set the stage. I have all our staff members try to set the stage for whether if they don't do something this year, set the stage for years to come.
You're exactly right, Jay. And I really see the multifocals taking off in that, certainly by starting to discuss it, but those repeat patients that are coming back maybe 6 months, a year later saying, I remember you talking about contact lenses. I really want to start those. But it's important to the business because these people in my practice, Jay, and I'm not sure about yours, but I find that these people are typically more loyal patients to the practice. They seem to have a better understanding of the value of the services that we offer, partially because we do charge a little bit more so for the multifocal fitting. And these people will oftentimes be most appreciative and discuss the experiences in your office with other patients. And this really gives you that chance or that ability to differentiate your practice, differentiate the type of care that you're delivering by simply taking an option that we have available, that multifocal technology, and offering it to patients. Now, when we look at national data, Jay, this is one of the concerning things. 8% of current contact lens wearers reported being told about multifocal contact lenses when they first complained about their near vision. So that means those people that were multifocal contact lens candidates, less than 10% of them were educated as this being an option. And here's the more concerning part. 33% of respondents indicated that they would likely seek services from another eye care practitioner if their doctor didn't inform them on multifocal contact lens options. The concern there is we oftentimes see new patients, and we understand the dynamics of new patients to the practice, but it's more difficult to track those people who we're not seeing in our office anymore. And it's concerning when we already realize that there are challenges that exist with contact lenses in terms of the comfort or delivering comfort to patients, that now these people, if we're not offering these options, they may start to drop out of your practice. So what are the options? Well, we're looking at a few things when we're talking about that presbyope, and particularly that early presbyopic patient. We're talking about potentially discontinuing contact lenses, and then just replacing those contact lenses with prescription glasses. And certainly that is the right option for some patients. But my philosophy in our practice is that if you want to wear contact lenses, we'll get you to wear contact lenses. I feel like the technology's there, and I feel like we have the ability to do that at this point. Continue with current contact lenses and simply put a pair of reading glasses over. That's another option. The unfortunate reality there, though, is that most of the time patients are looking to wear contact lenses to eliminate or reduce the need for glasses. So if they're putting those reading glasses over top of the contact lenses, it's just not going to be conducive to most people's lifestyles. In particular, when we look at what many of our patients are doing nowadays, they're not simply picking up papers or documents or reading those papers or documents. Many of them are working in offices. Many of them are working at computer stations. Many of them are using BlackBerries or iPhones, where there's this versatility in vision that's required or needed. So this really isn't an option for most busy patients, reaching for a pair of reading glasses over their current contact lenses. It's just not conducive to the busy lifestyles that we lead at this point. Monovision is certainly an option, but we all understand that monovision has its inherent disadvantages in terms of splitting that stereopsis that patients will experience. Modified monovision is certainly an option that exists for some of our patient and patient personality types. But multifocal contact lenses, Jay, is really kind of what we're here to discuss this evening. And I'd like you, Jay, to discuss a little bit on the role that multifocals and monovision plays in your practice.
Yeah, I don't know if I've had too many patients when I told them, hey, guess what? You know, you're 45. We need to give you, we need to help you out close with your vision. Here's a pair of readers. Are you excited for that? There's not too many patients out there that want and are excited to have to use or carry around reading glasses, and it takes them on and off throughout the day. So let's talk about some of the techniques that we use in our practices to fit those presbyopic patients. And I think this is probably where, you know, the most part where we're going to get the most disagreement and across the industry. And some practitioners love monovision and are very successful at monovision. And that's awesome. That's great. And that's something that you worked hard at, and that's great. Some of the studies, though, if you look at if you look at almost all of the studies, they all tell you if when you fit a patient in May of 2006, Drs. Richdale, Mitchell, and Zednick, they fit a number of patients with multifocal contact lenses for 30 days, and they fit them with monovision for 30 days. And at the end of the day, in the study, they had them, you know, rate which ones they liked better. Again, 76% of those patients, 3:1, preferred having multifocal contact lenses over monovision. And Dr. Benjamin repeated a study similar to that in July of 2007. And again, 3:1 patients preferred multifocal lenses over monovision.
You know, Jay,
you're good.
Well, I just wanted to add something in there. It's interesting. Monovision certainly from a monocular standpoint gives you clearer vision, and I think from a practitioner standpoint, for those embracing monovision as an option, really put more weight onto that. I've been fortunate to be part of some multifocal studies where people have actually answered questionnaires on their distance vision on a scale from 0 to 10 as being about a 3 or a 4. So relatively poor distance vision with their multifocal contact lenses. And then when you ask the question about overall experience, or do you definitely want to consider continuing with these contact lenses, the answer is consistently yes, yes, and yes. And it really goes to show that the demands of patients, even though subjectively they might feel that their distance vision monocularly might be a touch weaker in the multifocal design. The additional functionality that they have in terms of increased binocularity and the ability to transition from near to distance objects is phenomenal in their response to say, yeah, overall I really like this experience. Overall I really like these lenses. And even though I don't think my distance vision is perfect, I still want to continue with these contact lenses because of the amount of functionality that they've added to my near vision.
Yeah, I think sometimes we focus too much on the data, on what their visual acuity is, and I'll be honest with you, a lot of times when I go in for my follow-up visits for a multifocal contact lens patient, the first thing I again ask them, number one, how's the comfort of your lenses? Number two, how do you feel like you're seeing? How do you feel like you're seeing far away? How do you feel like you're seeing up close? Again, I haven't even looked at the visual acuity reading, and it really, if they tell me, you know what, these lenses are great. I feel like I can see things great far away. I feel like I can see things pretty good up. I feel like I can see things really good up close, or even pretty good up close. I really don't have any times where I'm having to pull out my reading glasses. You know what, these are great. I really, really enjoy these. I had a patient today. She came in with she brought her 5-year-old in for his eye exam before kindergarten, and she said, you know, I am still loving these contact lenses, and I fit her in multifocal contacts about a month ago, and she's like, I was so sick of carrying those reading glasses around, and she's just, again, saying to me, and it was just one of those times where, you know, you're like, yes, you know, we're doing the right thing, we're making patients happy, and I think that's the important thing that we all want to do at the end of the day. So if you look at monovision versus multifocal, again, we all know that the binocularity, that's a big thing. Patients do have a big range of vision that we need to see throughout the day. I always tell patients, our world isn't two distances, just like bifocal glasses. You know, that's why I don't even remember the last time we fit a flat top 28. I'm sure there's a few of them in our practices, but I let patients know our world isn't just two distances. It isn't distance and it isn't near. We need to see things at multiple bands. I don't know, there's not too many patients that I see on a daily basis that doesn't spend a significant amount of time on the computer throughout the day. And I let them know that these multifocal contacts, their designs have improved if they tried them 10 years ago. I let them know 8 to 10 years ago, these lenses are so much better these days. It's going to allow you a comfortable, clear vision through a wider range of what you do throughout the day. So let's just talk a second on how we implement these multifocal contact lenses in our practice and use a word like I talked about before, and that's setting the stage. I think that's the important thing is that we need to set that stage. That pre-fitting conference is what I refer to that. You talk to your patient, you know what, you're an excellent candidate for multifocal contacts. Even if it's somebody that you're kind of dredging, you're kind of worried about it, you know, I let them know, you know what, you're an excellent candidate for multifocal contact lenses, and I let them know some of the advantages are, and I let them know what some of the disadvantages are, but I let them know that there's options available, and I want them to know that I specialize in some of those options. And I've studied them hard. I've worked hard on my fitting techniques and patient selection. I don't know about you, Mila, but I know a lot of studies and a lot of reports talk about, you know, choosing the right patient. Well, you know, in my practice, the right patient is really any patient that wants to wear these lenses. There are times where there's a very difficult prescription to fit, and I let them know you're a really challenging patient that I'm going to fit. And I'll let you know that I'll try. I may not get you to where you want to be, but I will certainly give you my best effort. And I'll let them know there are options available, but there are some times where, you know, maybe the technology isn't the best for them. But certainly anybody that's willing and wanting to try multifocal contacts, that's going to go down in my book as a positive patient selection.
Yeah,
do you feel ahead of time?
Yeah, I agree with you, Jay. I certainly realize that there are categories of patients, and there are certain people who you, right off the get-go, you'll know that this patient will do well in multifocal contact lenses. Where it becomes important for us not to prejudge patients is those people who we're automatically taking out of the multifocal category. I mean, Jay, I just had one earlier this week who came back for a follow-up. Completely precise patient, very type A personality, who, if I followed guidelines and I said, you know, this person is too type A, this person is too detail-oriented, I may have skipped that opportunity. But we discussed it, we talked about it, and she really wanted to proceed with the fitting. She really was losing a lot of functionality, and she was relying on those reading glasses more so. And she was successful, Jay. And I have a number of those patients who have been kind of brushed off by previous practitioners who now we've delivered that additional functionality to.
And certainly patients that had a bad experience or went somewhere where somebody told them that multifocal contact lenses don't work and that they came to your practice and you made them happy in contact lenses, you are now their hero. And you're going to be the hero, and they're going to love you for what you've done and the freedom that you've provided.
I can't speak for those patients, Jay, but I'd like to think so. Fitting the lenses, that's obviously we all need to make sure we understand the different fitting techniques. And the one thing I always like to talk about is just understanding the design of the different lenses and know how our professional judgment. I let the patients know that I'm going to need to make some modifications to these lenses as we go. I also tell them they're a good patient for these contact lenses, but I also let them know that I rarely hit this dead on the first try. I may have to make some changes, and again, I tell them these changes are to customize the lenses for what they want them to be. A lot of times, again, I don't even look at the visual acuity. I just basically listen to what they're telling me. If they tell me I want a little bit more distance or a little bit more near, I know which way and which lens I'm going to have to make those changes. You want to look over at the visual acuity afterwards. So just letting them know and setting the stage up front that you're going to need to see them back a few times to help troubleshoot and customize the lenses for what they want them to be. And that's where communication is just essential to success. So I always, during that pre-fitting conference, discuss what their needs are and what their wants are, and I let them know that we're going to try to maximize those needs and try to customize these lenses to their needs. And and again, some of these words that you use, patients are like, wow, this is great. Thank you for taking the time to help make me as happy as I can in contact lenses instead of just throwing any lens on me. I also let them know I can't take your spectacle prescription that I just determined during the exam, and I can't just put that into context and say, here you go, you're good to go, you're happy, you'll be able to see everything you ever want to see. I let them know this is a completely different fitting process, and then I'm going to emphasize to patients what you can see during this fitting process, and not emphasize what you can't see. So don't pull out your 20/20 card and say, oh, man, I failed you. I can't get you to 20/20. Well, that's not always important. I let them know I'm going to try to get them to about 20/25, 20/30 at close. And to be honest with you, that's going to cover the vast majority of what they can see throughout the day and throughout their daily activities. So I like to discuss the technology and how that technology works. I don't work for iMaginations, and I'm not trying to sell the software, but I have that software in my practice, so I pull out a little schematic of how the multifocal contact lenses, how they're designed, and I let them know it's going to take a little bit of time for you to adjust to how these lenses work. And at nighttime or dark, depending on what's going on, your pupil dilation or your pupil constriction may change, may increase or decrease how their vision is, whether it's distance or whether it's near. And that comes down to understanding the technology, understanding the design of the lens that you're fitting on your patient, that it may change how well they see. And this is actually the schematic I pull up this picture of the multifocal contact lenses, and I let them know there's different zones in these lenses and how they're designed. And I can customize these zones for what they want them to be and for what you need to see throughout the day. And I try to set realistic expectations. You often want to try to under-promise and over-deliver. So I tell them you may not be able to cross-stitch in this. You may not be able to see that really fine detail work that you need to see. So if that's something that they're wanting up front, I have to ask them up front, are you willing to give up a little extra distance in one eye that maybe I can give you a little bit more reading in that other eye? So I understand I may have to modify these lenses to deliver what they're looking for. And there's times where they may have to pull out readers if that's something that they do and they want to look at really fine print and they're not willing to go up any distance. I let them know this is the max I can give you, and so you need to help me make a decision. This is the max I can give you without going any further and taking from the other end. And that's where that pre-fitting conference is so important to talk to them about what those expectations are. And if you set that up front, this demanding group of patients are certainly going to be much happier with you if you over-deliver what you talked about up front. I talk about also what the expected times involved and what the process is, and they're going to need to have some follow-up care. And I have a form in my office, and I pull it out and I let them know that this is what the fees are for my fitting fees, and I think that's probably some of the issues that we need to make sure we focus in on
in our practices is looking at our fee structure. Make sure that you're charging what you feel is appropriate for multifocal contacts. There are times where you're going to need to see patients up front or see patients a few extra times. And if you're charging a global fee for the multifocal fittings, to make sure that you're charging an appropriate value. If they do need to come back 3 or 4 or 5 times, you certainly have some demanding patients that may need to come back a few times. But you also have those patients that you fit them right on the first try. There's some that you'll get them in on 1 or 2 visits. And so it's a guesstimation. And just make sure that you're willing to take that extra time. If your fees are too low, you may be kind of frustrated with multifocal contacts. If you just fit one time and they come back and they're not happy, you may say, man, this isn't worth it. I didn't charge enough money to deal with this hassle. So, again, from the business side, make sure you set your fees to a correct value.
And Jay, can you go over how you set your fees in terms of charging a global fee versus charging per office visit for multifocal fittings?
Yeah, we have a form that we use in our office, and I'm more than willing to email that form out if anybody wants to email me at the end of the presentation. Won't be able to do it this evening, but in the next week or so, I'll be able to send you that form, and I would. It has a form, and I let the patient know that the fitting fee is X dollars, and this includes and we have different levels of fitting fees. So if they're a new patient or if they're a return patient, I let them know if this is a new fit or if maybe I just need to make some modifications and I just need to evaluate the lenses and make some changes. So we charge a global fee if we're doing a new fitting, and I let them know this global fee is going to cover you for your follow-up visits for the next 3 months. And to be honest with you, if I haven't had it done in 3 months, the patient's probably not happy, and they're probably not continuing to wear them. But there are times where I've had to go a little bit more, as far as I've had to go a little bit past 3 months if a patient's willing to go a little bit longer. But that rarely, I don't even know if I can remember the last time that happened. But yeah, we charge a global fee. And I just want patients to know that up front what the fees are, because if they're surprised, those are the patients that are now going to be upset at you for not being told about what your fees are. And just one last thing here, Neil. When we're talking about the patients, I let them know that these simultaneous lenses give you a wider range of vision than you would get with a monovision or you get with a different type of modality. And again, it comes back to the point that our world is digital. And that's, again, the digital eye health and some of the different things that CooperVision is doing is helping, letting everyone know how there's different things that they will have to use with our eyes throughout the day, whether it's with our laptops and with our BlackBerries and text messaging. We have multiple. I know I've done this multiple times, and I think we probably all have in certain meetings, and you're texting each other. And Mila, you texted me during your presentation before, like, what's going on? What's this person talking about? And I think we all have multiple demands about what's going on with their eyes, and that's why we want to try to satisfy them with multifocal contacts.
Yeah, I think, when I'm even describing this to a patient, Jay, one of the key terms I use is increased functionality. So when we're looking at people who are looking to minimize or eliminate glasses over their contact lenses or reduce the need for spectacles, we're really talking about increased functionality without the dependency on some type of supplemental eyewear other than contact lenses. And that's key, because that's going to hit home with people. Again, we keep using that BlackBerry example or that iPhone example, but it's so critical that we understand the way people are using their eyes at this point and how it's evolved in the past 10 years.
My kids call it the Crackberry.
And by the way, for those on the phone or those on the line who have an alcoholic drink, the more you drink, the funnier our jokes get and the better the presentation gets. But there, we talked about predetermining or putting these patients in categories, Jay, and I would just caution the practitioner to avoid type A personalities or emmetropes or well-adjusted monovision patients. I would avoid them to kind of ignore at times those categories where we typically stray from multifocal contact lenses, because there may be opportunities there that just haven't been presented in the past and that would do extremely well in those patient populations.
So let me jump in real quick there with a monovision patient. I don't know what you do in your practice, but if I have a patient that comes in that's in monovision contact lenses already, I love to again play that part of the hero. And you can it's a slam dunk if they're in a 2 diopter monovision type of setup. if I back them down to even 3/4 of a difference in their powers and fit them in a multifocal contact lens, I've given them a huge increase in the range of the vision they need and given them a lot more functional vision, especially in that intermediate area.
Yeah, I agree too. Sometimes some of the complaints with entering monovision contact lens wearers, Jay, is just decreased vision at certain distances. If they have a dominant right eye and their right eye set for distance, they'll oftentimes complain about their near vision being weak or vice versa. So it's one of these things that we have an opportunity
in the range of the vision they need and giving them a lot more functional vision, especially in that intermediate area.
Yeah, I agree too. Sometimes some of the complaints with entering monovision contact lens wearers, Jay, is just decreased vision at certain distances. If they have a dominant right eye and their right eye set for distance, they'll oftentimes complain about their near vision being weak or vice versa. So it's one of these things that we have an opportunity to deliver better vision with increased technology. One thing you said, though, that was important, Jay, you were really talking about customizing things. I think it's important that when we are fitting multifocal contact lens wearers, we certainly need to be cognizant of their specific needs. But initially, we shouldn't stray too far from those fitting guides. I mean, these fitting guides were created with large population basis. And I find that sometimes with certain patients, if we get too far from those fitting guides, we find ourselves in a situation where we can't kind of get back on track. So I always make sure that when I'm starting with a new patient, I go based on exactly what those fitting guides suggest. I usually have the patient back in a week, and then after that week, after they've had a chance to wear the multifocals, then we'll start fine-tuning things based on, one, any type of over-refraction that I might see, and two, based on their visual demands. Of course, we always need to talk about the initial contact lens starting point. But, Jay, you mentioned this earlier even, too, transitioning that monovision patient into multifocal contact lenses. And you talked about offsetting the eyes just a little bit less than they would be traditionally with monovision. These are things that we use in general to be more successful with multifocal contact lenses. Undercorrecting the non-dominant eye just slightly by a quarter diopter will oftentimes show significant improvements in the near vision. Again, increasing ad powers will sometimes provide significant increases. I mean, even if we're talking about a step or the next level of power without affecting their general or their distance vision. When I'm selecting these contact lenses initially too, Jay, I'm kind of with you in that I always check visual acuities monocularly and binocularly with multifocal contact lenses. But before I check any acuities, I let the contact lenses settle on the eyes, and what I do is I show them something where I can give them success immediately. Why would I show somebody who comes in with a -2 and a +1 ad the distance vision chart after I've placed multifocal contact lenses on their eyes? Because what I'll be showing them if I do that is how these contact lenses are different in the distance. What I want to do is I want to show them how they are different up close, how they can add functionality to that patient's world. I have them pull out their cell phone. We've kind of heard these discussions on keep cell phones off when you're in the office or don't bring cell phones in the office. We don't have that sign on our office for this very specific reason, because I have people pull it out and look at it. And at that point, Jay, I almost know immediately if I'm going to be successful with that patient, because 99% of the time these people will pull out their cell phones and they'll look at it and they'll be able to see it. And that demonstrates the success and the power of the technology that we have to deliver to these patients.
And I don't know about you, but I try to trust my starting point strategy. If I've had that starting point strategy, whether it's a quarter under corrected in that non-dominant eye, and oftentimes my patients are dilated at the end of the eye exam, and now that I've dilated their eyes, I've changed them from single vision contact lenses to multifocal contacts. To be honest with you, that's probably absolutely the worst time to check their vision, because now their pupils are dilated. So a lot of times I just have them, ask them, how's your vision seem okay right now? And I let them know that this is a good starting point. And occasionally, I definitely want them to read the chart and make sure they're legal to drive. And I certainly don't want anyone to send anybody out of the office and them get in a crash. But I certainly, as long as their vision's acceptable and the distance, I let them know this is not the best that you're going to see with these. It takes a little bit of time for your adaptation to these lenses. And I also let them know that your pupils are dilated. So right now, it's the worst time to judge these lenses, and that gives them a chance to take them home and let's see you back in a week. And I usually try not to wait much after a week, because if you wait longer, patients may not wear them into that follow-up visit.
Yeah, I agree with you too, Jay. I think we need to see patients within that first week of wearing multifocal contact lenses, in particular for the first time, just so we can tweak and make the mild modifications that we sometimes need to make, and we can make that visual experience as best as possible. But we kind of need to always keep in mind that we need to be creating a balance for patients, really delivering as much up-close vision or near vision, and balancing that with their distance visual acuity needs. So, Jay, you really have a neat case presentation on multifocal contact lenses, and I really want you to take over here and kind of go over that case.
Yeah, and I think balance is the key, Mueller. I think I even let patients know we're trying to balance the distance in your near together. And so if things are out of balance, then you're going to have a hard time having success with these lenses.
Yeah,
so here I'd like to introduce a patient, Mark. He's a 48-year-old engineer, and he comes into my office. He's a new patient. He's had some blurred vision at both distance and near. And he even described it as a loss of crispness in his vision. And he's actually even talked to me. He said, you know what, I may just be done with contact lenses. I've been wearing them for a long time. You know, I'm not even sure if I want to wear them anymore. Maybe I should just go back to wearing glasses all the time. He's an engineer, and many of your minds may be thinking, yeah, just put this guy back in glasses. You know, he's good to go. Well, you know, in the back of my mind is that, wow, this guy's right on the edge. He's right on that border of dropping out of contacts. He's about ready to go over the edge. And I realized that if he drops out of contacts, now instead of me seeing him every 1.4 years or 1.5 years, I may only see him every 2.5 to 3 years. And so, boy, this is you know, I need to have some success with him. You know, he's currently in a multifocal contact lens. He's in a low-ad lens in both eyes. And you can see his visual acuity. His best corrected vision is 20/30 distance and 20/30 up close. And, you know, that's the best you see in either way. So he really isn't seeing that great. He's not seeing very crisply at either place. And I usually try to do a little over-refraction with when patients come in wearing their current contact lenses, and a over-refraction did nothing with flipper lenses. And I tried to see if that would make it a difference. So I'm like, okay, well, we're not making any better with this lens, so let's see what his refraction is. Sure enough, he's got quite a bit of cylinder there. And he's got a significant amount for his level of nearsightedness. So you can see he's got a half a diopter sphere, and he's got a diopter cylinder in both eyes. And he's a 175 ad, so he was in a low ad lens. So yeah, we're certainly not giving him enough ad up close. His right eye is dominant eye. I use a +2 fog lens, so I take a flipper lens and I hold it over each eye. Sometimes it's in the phoropter. Sometimes if they have their glasses on, I'll hold it over there. And I often will even ask them, which eye do you sight with if you're a hunter or if you take cameras. And so I like to have a couple of different readings on what their dominant eye is, just so I know that up front. I demonstrated that cylinder to him in the phoropter, and sure enough, he could definitely tell a huge difference in his visual acuity with that cylinder. So in my mind, you know, I got to listen to what he says. That he wants better vision. He wants better vision distance. He wants better vision up close. So my options are certainly can do single vision distance and maximize his distance vision with some toric lenses, and that is one option. But I think in his case, he wanted to be free of glasses as much as he could. He didn't want to have to carry around readers very much, or at all. He would love to be free of his glasses or reading glasses at all. He loves the freedom of contacts, but again, he just feels like he's not seeing well enough. So I pull out my ProClear multifocal fitting guide, and it's something that it's a specialty lens, and I let the patient know this up front. This is a lens that not only is a toric lens that's weighted to correct for your astigmatism, I also let them know that this is a multifocal lens. So this is one of the most challenging lenses that we fit in our practice, and it takes somebody that's learned it, that's gone through classes, that understands what's going on with this lens, and the patient understands that, okay, my doctor's taking a little bit extra time to understand this technology and do the best we can during this fitting process. So why should I even correct this cylinder? If I'm thinking on my mind, Mark is obviously a critically observant patient, and if you leave that cylinder uncorrected, he's already lost some crispness. Well, you also, it's further amplified if you put him into a soft multifocal contact lens. And again, if you're ever in any doubt, even 3/4 of a diopter, sometimes I'll ask the patient, how much of a difference? Is this a little difference or is this a lot of difference? And if it's a big difference, I'll certainly want to make sure I correct that cylinder. I always fit the torque part of this lens first, so I want to make sure I look at the line, and I look and see how the rotation is left or right, and if I need to make some adjustment. I'm hoping that lens is within 10 to 15 degrees of rotation because I actually love to use LARS. I like to keep it simple in my practice. We'll try to be as efficient as possible, and I've got a busy family outside of practice, so if I don't have to pull out any type of fitting calculators and things like that, I certainly would rather not to. But there are times where you have to. But as far as these lenses, I always try to fit the torque part of it first and then go on and try to fit the multifocal portion afterwards. So Mark did take 2 tries. If you look at my notes up here, he had this is on his second set of contact lenses. So the first set, he was doing okay. He wasn't doing as well as I'd like. There's a little bit of rotation in one of his lenses, and so I had to compensate for that rotation. And he also accepted a little bit more plus, which I was ecstatic about. When I do an over-refraction over top of the lenses, if a patient will accept some extra plus, I'm going to give that to him because sure enough, that's going to help him both places, distance and near. I'm sorry, I should make sure I clarify that. He accepted some extra plus when he's looking at the distance. And so I made those changes. I ordered him some new lenses. He came back, and you can see he had a really good balance in his contact lenses. If you just look at his OU prescription, he's 20/20 distance OU, and he's 20/25 plus up close. He was absolutely ecstatic with how good his vision was. He had a stable over-refraction. The contacts were fitting great. And again, this is a patient that's going to be a lifelong patient if you make sure you focus in on that. Now I moved my pointer, so I don't know if I'll be able to get back there. I'll let you take over, Mila.
Well, Jay, you bring up such a good point because when you're talking about Mark, when you're talking about an engineer, this is somebody that anybody with common sense would likely have brushed off and said, glasses might be the best thing for you, Mark. But you demonstrated a mastery of the understanding of this lens design, and I think that's critical when you're talking about multifocal contact lenses because that'll really let you or help you understand the powers that they actually have. It'll let you understand their potential. It'll help you understand if you do run into some roadblocks in terms of delivering power, what are the other options? This is the balanced progressive technology, and this is the design that's in the CooperVision lenses. And this actually shows the 2 different styles of lenses, the D lens on the left and the N lens on the right. And the D lens is really labeled D for dominant as opposed to distance, which is commonly referred to as. And it's simply set with its distance platform directly in the center of the lens and its near platform in the more periphery of the lens. And then there's an intermediate zone that connects the 2. When you're looking at the N lens or the non-dominant eye lens, it's the exact opposite. So you have the near platform that's located in the center of the lens. You have a distance platform that's located in the periphery of the lens, and then what you have is an intermediate zone with aspheric optics that connects the 2. And when you determine eye dominance, and Jay, you described that by doing a +2 fog, which is one of my favorite ways to do it as well too. You're really determining which eye is dominant based on which I would prefer not to have the +2 lens over it. Usually when viewing a moderately sized target, I usually use about a 20/40 line to do that, Jay. And then you're using the eye that doesn't like the +2 lens in front of it when viewing that 20/40 target as the D lens or the dominant eye lens. And you're using the other eye and fitting that with the N lens or the non-dominant eye. Again, it's important to understand that that's not a dominant that's not or doesn't stand for distance and near, but it's a dominant versus non-dominant eye. It's interesting because we have such an array of powers to select from with this lens, and really we can meet most patients' expectations because of the broad range of powers that exist, both in the spherical component, plus 20 to minus 20 sphere, in addition to the add powers that are available in this lens. Now, Jake, you talked a little bit about pupil size and the design of the contact lens, and I was wondering if you could comment on that a little bit more, because I know this is significant in our presbyopic population, especially as they start to age and we start to see some of the smaller pupils walk into our office.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to troubleshooting. And as far as the pupil size, I think it's important that we've looked at the pupil size ahead of time, but we use it for troubleshooting and understand the issues that patients may have down the road. If they have too small a pupil size and you fit them in a center near design or a center non-dominant design, then you may understand that maybe they may not be getting the maximum potential of their distance. And so, again, just kind of use it for troubleshooting and make sure you understand how the role of the pupil size is, no matter what the design of the contact lens is. If you understand what the technology is involved in the contact lens, then that'll help you as far as understanding how to troubleshoot and make the patient see better. I think I lost my pointer here. Mila, can you advance me here?
Yep. I just advanced you, Jay, so we're going to the next slide here in just a sec. There we go.
Great. So when you look at those early presbyopic population, that is the population that is sometimes the easiest to maneuver and move them into multifocal contact lenses. And I'll kind of go through this a little bit quickly because these patients are some of the slam dunks that we can do with multifocals. Go ahead and, I don't know what happened, Adam. I'm trying to move my cursor, but it's not moving over to the advancement. Did that work there? Okay, good. Maybe I got it back. Okay, so when you look at the ProClear EP design, it's similar to the low ad design. But it has a larger distance zone, and that's the biggest thing that we need to know. It's a modified design, and really, I think I have for example, a librarian that came in, and she's a -3 myope, and sure enough, she comes in and she's having a hard time seeing up close. She's 42, and I talked to her about the advantages of some of multifocal contact lenses. You fit her into a multifocal lens right off the bat, and it really sets the stage for future changes that you're going to need to make. And you fit it more like a spherical lens. You don't have to design the add power. You don't have to design the D and the N lens, and so they're really straightforward to fit. And if you look at it, it has a larger spherical distance zone in the middle of the lens, and it has the aspheric and the intermediate. It has the aspheric and the intermediate and the near zone around the peripheral or the mid-periphery of the lens. And so it is designed for those emerging presbyopes. And there are obviously some limitations of this lens. This lens works well. I found it in my practice it works very well in those emerging presbyopes. But there are certain times where patients can't get enough reading out of it, and then I have to let them know I need to fit you into a multifocal lens to give you as much reading as you need. There are times I've also used this lens as a fallback for patients that couldn't adapt to the multifocal lenses, and I'll fit it more as a modified monovision, and even that I can give them a little bit more range with this lens as well. So some of the big benefits patient benefits of embracing and fitting multifocal lenses in your practice. Adam, I intermittently lose my cursor, and I'm not quite sure why. Okay. So go ahead and advance me, if you can.
Gotcha.
And so just the last two slides, Ian, I'm going to talk about, you went through the first one, Neil, real quick, if you back up one, talk about some of the benefits that patients have as they have improved self-perception. They feel and they look younger. They have improved self-esteem, and they have freedom from their reading glasses. So there's some inherent benefits that patients have when you embrace multifocal lenses in your practice. And also, from the practice side, you have larger patient expectations. And I think the biggest thing that I get is just that loyalty. Patients are going to come back. They know that you're going to take the time to fit these lenses. And to be honest with you, I truly think there is improved practice profitability in the way that you set up your fitting fees and the way you set up your pricing of your lenses. And those referrals, you can't imagine just the number of referrals whenever you get Sally that's sitting next to Joan in her cubicle and says, you know what, Dr. Miller's done a great job fitting my multifocal lenses, and I know you're having the same problem I am. You should go see him because he's going to do a good job with these lenses. It's one of those lenses, the multifocals, that I think that we all need to be embracing. We have a huge opportunity, and I think that we all just need to consider ways that we can, how these lenses are going to fit in your practice. And I'm going to turn the presentation over for a couple minutes to the brains behind the Biofinity lens. Now, I don't know if Doug would like to take that title, but I'm going to turn it over to Doug Breyer with CooperVision.
Thanks, Jason, and thanks, Neely, for a wonderful webinar this evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Doug Breyer. I'm the Director of Marketing at CooperVision. I handle all of our multifocal and toric lenses here in the U.S., and through some efforts that we've done internally with CooperVision Marketing with some of the folks here on the phone with us this evening, Janice Gold in particular, who's heading up our interactive efforts here at CooperVision. We are in the midst of introducing a new campaign to both practitioners such as yourselves as well as to consumers, talking about eye health, basically the presbyopic world, or the presbyopic patients adapting to a digital world. Some of the things that Jason and Neely have touched on today, there's been a lot of advances in multifocal lens technologies over the last few years, and the presbyopic market has certainly grown by leaps and bounds since the late 90s and through early 2000. And a lot of those people who are presbyopic now are certainly using all the digital devices that we're all very, very familiar with. So their lives have changed dramatically in terms of how they need to see and function in a digital world, and certainly multifocal lenses play very nicely into that. So one of the things that you'll start to see as practitioners over the next few months is a new campaign from CooperVision talking about improving your patient's eye health. And one of the things that I wanted just to detail with you tonight is a new website that we have, coopervision.com/clearchoice. And Adam, if I'm not mistaken, we will be able to email or at least post this site on ODWire very, very shortly, so that you can all go there and see this link. But I invite you to go to the website. There's lots of product support material, a wealth of information on CooperVision multifocals and multifocals in general, and primarily talking about improving your patient's eye health with multifocal lenses. So on the site, again, we have a wealth of information on our products, from fitting guides, some of the things that Jason and Neely had touched on earlier, fitting tips, fitting tutorials, patient resources. Again, from a marketing standpoint, our philosophy is that you can have great success with multifocal lenses by truly understanding the lens geometry, how the lenses work, not just ours but our competitors. I think once you understand truly how the lenses work, as Neely pointed out, kind of use the fitting guide as the foundation. But from there, when you really understand the lens geometry, you've got limitless possibilities to address presbyopia with your patients with multifocal lenses. And one of the big things that Jason and Neely touched on towards the end was ProClear EP, which is just a wonderfully successful lens for us from CooperVision's standpoint in terms of addressing the emerging presbyope. It's a wonderful lens, it's a great material, and it's a nice way to really introduce the patients entering the early stages of presbyopia into a true multifocal lens. As they touched on earlier in this webinar, a lot of emerging presbyopes are addressed with monovision, which certainly has its strengths but also has its weaknesses, as some of the things that we pointed out earlier in this webinar. The ProClear EP truly is a multifocal lens. We internally like to call it multifocal with training wheels, because it's relatively easy to fit, and primarily it's a slam dunk for the patients to get into multifocals. It provides very good near visual acuity without much sacrifice to distance. So one of the things we've targeted with this is a ProClear EP challenge. And the challenge is quite simple. You can fit 6 patients between now and May 31st. The slide here says April 31st, but this was an earlier iteration, so the deadline is now May 31st. And we will guarantee that at least 5 patients will be successfully fit with ProClear EP. And if they're not, you will earn 3 free fits of ProClear EP compliments of CooperVision. So if you haven't experienced ProClear EP, I encourage you to go to this website, download the ProClear EP challenge form, and you'll be off and running with what has been a truly wonderful product for CooperVision and a wonderful addition to our multifocal portfolio. So I want to thank Jason and Mile for their leading what I would consider to be a wonderful webinar for all of us. And Adam, I can turn it over to you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. We have a whole bunch of questions here from our members. So I think the best way to do this is I'll ask the questions, and then you guys can just jump in and fight amongst yourselves to decide who's going to answer them. So let's see. So here's an interesting question. So we'll start with this one.
We're going to start with an interesting one?
This is interesting. So, you've spoken a lot in the webinar about how to try to maximize your odds of success with a patient. So the question is, are there occupations or specific visual demands that would not be a good idea to fit in multifocals?
Adam, the way I would personally answer that is, to be quite frank with you, no. I will have an open discussion about multifocal contact lenses with every single one of my patients. And if that is something that they're interested in doing, interested in wearing, I am willing to try with any one of my patients. There are certainly people who will say stay away from engineers because of that typical type A personality. There are certain patients who will say, be cautious when you're fitting a patient who is, or their occupation is heavy in terms of driving. But I find that these people will oftentimes be most appreciative of the technology because they have the most versatile lives. These people who drive a lot are oftentimes looking at things that they need to have access to in the car: cell phones, maps, the satellite mapping systems, everything. All this is stuff that they'll need. So me personally, I will talk to every presbyopic patient about multifocal contact lenses. Jay, any thoughts?
No, I may make some, again, what I call the patient fine-tuning adjustments if they have a specific occupation that may require demands more at distance or more at near. And I don't like to use the word tweak. I just, try to stay away from, let me tweak your prescription. I don't know if they understand what that means, and some patients may get scared of that. But I tell them, let me fine-tune the prescription. If there are some patients, like Mila said, that's a great example of somebody who's maybe a truck driver, and maybe they do a lot of nighttime truck driving. So, maybe I'm going to fit them in 2D lenses, or maybe I want to try to fit them in a little, a little more distance, and maybe give up a little bit of that fine tuning near. So there are some times where certain occupations I'll have to fine tune things, but I don't know if I have any specific occupations that I'd say, I would fit in multifocal contacts, because I think we all have so many demands with our visual system throughout our normal daily life that there's always an opportunity, and I truly think that multifocal lenses give you the best opportunity for success, and especially from the patient side. That's to the side that we're trying to make happy, and study after study has shown that multifocal lenses are going to make the patient happier.
Great. Okay, well, here's sort of a follow-on question to this. When do you finally say enough is enough? You've done a number of adjustments. You sort of can't take it any further. Do you let the patient drive that process, or do you tend to step in and say, I really can't help you anymore?
That's an interesting question. You may want to jump on this too, but I'll tell you what I do in my practice is that I let the patient make that final decision. If I'm down to a quarter more plus or a quarter more minus to give them a little more distance, a little bit more near, I'll let them know. Joe, we've done the best we've done. I can give you a little bit more distance in one eye, or give you a little more distance or near in the other eye. But to be honest with you, you're going to need to let me know which way you go. There really is no other in-between steps. And so there gets to be a point where you're making one adjustment, quarter up or quarter minus, and I let them know. And sometimes I'll give them two separate lenses, and I'll say, you know what, I want you to try out this lens A for a week, and I want you to try out lens B for a week, and come back and let me know which lens makes you the happiest to wear. And really, that's where we make that final decision, and I'll let them know this is all we got. So I don't know about you, Mila. Do you do anything different than that?
Yeah, Jay, my fitting philosophy is very similar to yours in that I will be willing to work with a patient, but there are times or there are points where we kind of need to know when to call it quits, meaning there are points where we have to finally say, I can optimize or I can emphasize one more so than the other, i.e. distance or i.e. near, but this is really the maximum that we can go with this, and we have to really draw the line at some point. And I don't really think it's drawing the line saying you can't wear contact lenses. I think it's drawing the line saying I really can't deliver much more near power through multifocal contact lenses for you. You may need a pair of supplemental glasses to help you out with the real fall or fine-tune print, because there will be a certain percentage of patients that just won't really be able to or want to wear multifocal contact lenses. And we know that kind of going into the fitting process, and we need to be attuned to that as practitioners. So we just really need to stick to the fitting guides and at a certain point know when to say, I really can't do much more to improve your vision at this point. And if you want to continue wearing these contact lenses, we certainly can. But to deliver additional functionality, it may require a supplemental pair of glasses.
I like to joke around a little bit with the patient. I'll tell them, are you getting sick of seeing me yet? So I try to let them know, this is we've done a lot of tries, and I want them to know that I'm willing to see them as many times as they want, but I try to throw that out. Are you getting sick of seeing me yet? And as long as they don't go crazy and say, no, then or yes for sure, then I know I still have them, and they're still willing to work with me. So.
Jay, I would caution you to not ask questions that you might not want the answer to.
Well, here's another interesting question. So you mentioned the study earlier on that patients prefer the multifocals 3-to-1 over monovision, but what that implies is that 1 in 4 patients will prefer monovision. Do you think it's worthwhile to give the patient the full list of options when they start out, knowing what's available, both of the multifocal contacts and monovision? Do you sort of lay out the whole story beforehand, or do you take one approach first, and then if they truly do sort of wash out of the multifocals, then you start presenting other options?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because I think when I first started with these lenses, that's exactly what I did. I felt like I needed to give the patient every single option that they needed, and I think I've got to my comfort zone where I feel like I want to let the patient know what my recommendation is. I let them know there are some other options if this doesn't work, but this is the recommendation that I have, and this is why I'm recommending that lens. And I think I think sometimes we overload our patient with all the different options and all the different, where I think truly they want to know what's my best option for success. And so I usually tell them there are other options, and that's one option to consider. But I let them know what my recommendation is, and this is why I recommend it.
Yeah, I take a little bit of a different approach, Adam. What I do in the office is I'll describe 3 options to patients who are contact lens wearers and want to continue wearing contact lenses. The first being continue with distance vision lenses only with a pair of reading glasses over top, kind of like they're doing right now. The second option I describe is monovision, and I literally will take my hands and show the patients that one eye will be focused in the distance and one eye will be focused up close. And then the third option I tell them is a multifocal contact lenses. Contact lenses that are worn in both eyes that lets you see far away and up close through each eye. Most of the time when given those options, patients will gravitate towards the third option because it's the most logical from a patient's perspective. Monovision sounds bizarre from a patient's perspective. Even when they come in asking about monovision because they have a friend who has it, they kind of ask with a peculiar look on their face, not really understanding how somebody could look in the distance with one eye and not the other eye. Saying that, I always tell them, because most of the time patients will decide to go with the multifocal lenses, but if they don't work, I tell them, I said, this is still an option if the multifocals don't work. So I really want to make the patient as functional as possible. And Adam, just like you said, some people will prefer monovision to multifocals. In my personal experience, it's the minority of patients that do prefer monovision.
Right. Great. Okay, and here's another question, actually, more of a statement, I guess. have you tried fitting ProClear EPs as modified monovision? This particular person had great success with it with computer users.
I certainly do it as a fallback method. I would try to fit them in a multifocal lens first, and there are some patients that are just unwilling to give up any clarity or any crispness in the distance. And then I say, you know what, I can at least give you a little bit wider range with this lens and the EP lens. And so modified monovision with the ProClear EP is a completely acceptable way to fit the lens in my mind.
Yeah, I think modified monovision is kind of a neat concept. I think, and again, don't necessarily generalize this for all patients in this category, but I think it's a great option for people who do a lot of stuff in the distance, don't necessarily do a lot of heavy reading, and people who want the flexibility to see a scorecard when they're playing bowling, but don't really want to or want to maintain the sharpest vision possible in the distance. I find those people do extremely well, just like the person who put in that statement do extremely well with that style, where you're going a single vision lens in one eye and then that EP lens in the other eye.
And I think these questions pull up the major importance of communication. I mean, we all have to communicate with our patient and let them ask them what are they looking for in their contact lens wearing experience, and that will help dictate where you'll go with your fitting process.
Great. Okay, I have a question here for Doug. I think
all right.
For Doug. So we have a bunch of people. Actually, this question has now been asked 4 times. Availability of trial lenses. A couple people have had difficulty getting them, and they want to know, can they actually get trial lenses?
Well, I can't ask follow-up questions because no one can ask a question, but I guess I'll try and make a broad statement. We have no issues internally at CooperVision with trial lenses of any of our multifocal products. So why don't Adam, I can give out my email, can I?
Sure, or
Doug, let them know how to get
people to contact you that way.
Yeah, you can either contact your sales representative, or for those of you who asked a question, feel free to email me with more specific information on any issues you're having with trial lenses, and I can look into it further. My email is dbrayer, B-R-A-Y-E-R, at CooperVision.com. But again, we don't have any issues with trial lens shortages for any of our multifocal products.
Okay, great. And you know what we'll do? We'll put your email address on the ODWire thread where this video is going to be archived as well, so people will be able to find it.
Thank you.
And let's see. So follow-up question, I guess, maybe another one for you. Are there any daily wear disposable multifocals or silicone ones in the pipeline?
There are both in CooperVision's pipeline. We will be launching Biofinity multifocal later this year. Unfortunately, we're going to be introducing that product in markets other than the U.S. In the very near future, but we will have a launch of Biofinity multifocal in the U.S. later this year, and we are actively pursuing a daily disposable multifocal.
Great.
I don't have a firm timeline on that, and can't really give any specifics on that.
Sure. And I'm sure, as it comes closer to market, I'm sure we'll hear much more about it. So
yes, you will.
Everyone will keep following on ODWire, and I'm sure we'll hear about it.
So as long as I'm doing my job properly, you'll be hearing more about it, yes.
Great. Let's see. We have a couple of minutes left for just a couple more questions. In your opinion, what's the most effective way to determine eye dominance?
I think the +2 fog method that Jay talked about earlier works extremely well. And essentially what you do is with the patient's full distance correction, you show a 20/40 or 20/30 line of letters, and you simply hold the +2 lens in front of the left eye and then hold it in front of the right eye. And you ask the patient which one seems less blurry or less foggy or less fuzzy to you. And the eye that it's that the lens is over is the non-dominant eye, and the eye that's exposed and looking at the target is that dominant eye. What I'll sometimes even do too, but I'm really getting away from this, is the sighting test, where I have a patient make a triangle and then look at my nose through that triangle. And depending on what eye's looking through the triangle at my nose will be their sighting or their dominant eye. Jay, do you have anything that you do differently, or?
I have them looking through my eye. No, I'm just kidding, Neil. No,
Wow.
No, I think the +2 method. You know, when you talk about making a little triangle to have them look at the end of the room, I haven't had as much success with that. I think it's, that's just me. I think patients, depending on the angle they're looking at the doorknob or the angle they're looking at the end of the room, certainly plays a role into that. If all else fails and you get different results, my default eye is the right eye, and so I let the patient know. I don't. If you don't know what your dominant eye is, some patients just aren't very strongly dominant in one eye or the other eye, and I'll default to the right eye because I let them know a lot of street signs are off to the right side, and a lot of times when they're driving, I'd rather them have a little bit better distance. So that's my default eye. But I do try my best to do a +2 fog, and I look for their response. I basically just listen to them, and just like Mila said, just listen to their response.
All right. So a sort of a related question: is there any benefit to fitting 2D lenses or 2N lenses in some patients?
I truly think there is. There are times where I will definitely use 2D lenses with patients, and I've had extremely good success with that. Whenever patients are having a hard time with giving up a little bit of fog at the distance, and there are patients, there's a certain response that I get from patients that tells me they're having a hard time with the N lens, and it's usually I don't know, it's usually a patient has a hard time describing it. They'll sit down in the chair and they go, my distance doesn't seem bad. I just feel like I've got a haziness, or they often will talk about really, really enhanced ghosting. They go, I just really am getting a lot of ghosting or double vision or haloing effect, and so oftentimes if that patient is having a hard time adjusting to the N lens, I'll do a slightly modified monovision where I'll undercorrect their non-dominant eye by maybe a half a diopter and give them 2D lenses. And I've had extremely high success with that with patients. So there are times where I've done that. I don't know I'd say too many times where I've used 2N lenses. Have you used 2N lenses, Mila?
On rare instances, but for those patients who do a lot of near work, I found that delivering the near power through 2N lenses is an extremely powerful tool that we have as practitioners when we're utilizing this technology. Saying that, though, I would caution from that comment thinking, I have that patient who has a lot of near work and I'm going to put them in 2N lenses. The reason why I say that, and again, I keep kind of going back to the fitting guide, I found almost counterintuitive results in that sometimes when patients are complaining of near, it's actually their D lens that needs to be modified and significantly improves their near vision. And again, on the opposite side of the coin, sometimes if people are having problems with their distance vision, you think it has to be a D lens issue or problem, when in fact tweaking the N lens will correct that distance vision problem. So I do stray at times from the fitting guide, and I do have those special circumstances where I do that, but I find that when I keep things as coordinated as I can to that fitting guide, my fitting success is relatively high just going by that standard fitting set.
Okay, you bring up a good point about the D and the N lens, because that's the one thing this lens has is a ton of flexibility. Is that you can change the add power, you can change the D or the N, you can change. There's so many different options, and sometimes that can be the confusing part. But I think that's the important thing, is to definitely understand that when you look at the monocular visual acuity, if somebody's seeing 20/20 distance and 20/80 up close in their D lens, you probably need to bump the add up in that D lens. So you bring up a good point with that.
Yeah, I agree, Jay. Great point.
Great. Okay. Well, it actually looks like we're running out of time, guys. But I'd like to thank Mila, Jason, and Doug for coming on out and taking the time to speak with us tonight. And thanks for everyone who showed up. The archive of this webinar will be available on ODWire within the next few days, along with a spot where we can continue talking and you can continue asking questions, and the conversation will continue on. So again, thanks so much for coming out tonight. I really appreciate everyone coming.